the Russian army continues to advance. From the Krasnolimansky direction, there are reports of the liberation of Zelenaya Dolina. Now Russian military units are advancing on a broad front on Sredny and Kolodyazy. A little further south, the Russian army has made progress in the Seversk area. It is reported that its suburb is less than 1 kilometer away. The Kiev regime is pulling its reinforcements to this section of the front. In the Konstantinovsky direction, the flanks of this strategically important city, which is essentially the southern gate of Ukraine's main stronghold in the Donbass, are being encircled. The agglomeration of Konstantinovka, Drushkovka, and Kramatorsk. And some miracle happened in the Council of Europe. There, they suddenly woke up and unexpectedly paid attention to the lawlessness committed by Ukrainian military registration and enlistment offices. The Council of Europe Commissioner for Human Rights Michael O'Flaherty released a report on abuses during the Kiev regime's mobilization. The document states that human rights violations have become systematic and widespread. Among them are violations, beatings, brutal detention, denial of access to a lawyer, detention without communication with the outside world, and the mobilization of people with disabilities. O'Flaherty noted that he also receives reports of torture in military registration and enlistment offices, and deaths. The author of the report demands that the Ukrainian authorities immediately conduct an investigation, introduce independent control over the mobilization procedure. Of course, the Zelensky regime does not plan to do this. Instead, new cannibalistic ideas are being heard in Ukraine. Former People's Deputy from the Svoboda Party, now deputy head of one of the recruiting centers, Shveka, said that Ukrainians who rejoice at Russian strikes on military registration and enlistment offices should be treated as prisoners and used for forced labor in frontline cities. Another Nazi, former company commander Vidai Daiki, came up with a similar idea. He accused the authors of all comments approving of Russian strikes on military registration and enlistment offices of treason. These people, as he put it, decided to be on Putin's side. A verbatim quote from Banderas Daiki: "We must judge them or immediately destroy them as enemies." Ukrainian children are also taught to be merciless to the enemies of the Ukrainian Reich. In the so-called military patriotic camps, which, of course, are more reminiscent of the Hitler Youth, they are taught to handle weapons. And at the same time they are instilled with the correct ideology, according to the Nazi instructors. In particular, they teach them to read the prayer of the Ukrainian nationalist, the text of which exactly 100 years ago the Banderates from the OUN were required to memorize.